Now that we have a verdict in the George Zimmerman case, what is next? Let's bring back our legal panel, Robert Schalk, Doug Burns, both defense attorneys and former prosecutors. Now, there's been great talk that the Martin family may decide to sue civilly for money damages in what's known as a wrongful death. What is that? It's basically saying that George Zimmerman was negligent. What's negligence? Here's the jury instruction on negligence. And if you look at it here, it's basically saying that George Zimmerman had to act unreasonably in order to have been negligence. Now, Doug, what do you think?
Well, that he owed him a burden, some burden, and he breached it, and damages resulted therefrom. My opinion is they would have a viable argument, certainly, that, look, he disregarded the advice about we don't need you to follow him. He didn't go up to him and say, hey, I'm a community watchman, and by the way, I'm armed, okay? And a lot of experts I spoke to, homicide experts, said that criminally negligent homicide might have applied. So you translate that to the civil landscape, Greg, and there may be a viable case there.
You know, Robert, the burden of proof in a criminal case is very, very high, beyond a reasonable doubt. But in Florida, in a wrongful death case, it is preponderance of the evidence. It's a little bit more than 50%, a much lower burden.
No, it's the best kind of burden of proof you can have if you're a plaintiff's lawyer. Sure. You don't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest level you could ask for. I agree with everything that Doug's saying. It was interesting to see yesterday in the press conference after the acquittal, there was a question posed to Mark O'Meara whether or not he was afraid of any lawsuits that would come, and he almost welcomed them because he was of the opinion that they'd be able to get some sort of immunity based upon the self-defense stand your ground law down in Florida. So it'd be interesting to see how it played out.
Yeah, and of course in the O.J. Simpson case after the acquittal in the criminal case, he was criminally or civilly liable to the Goldman family.
Sure.
For, all kinds of millions of dollars in damages, and he's out there somewhere looking for the real killer still. No, he's actually behind bars in Nevada. But look, the Martin family could actually get punitive damages under Florida law.
Well, absolutely. As I said, if he was negligent in the way he acted toward the victim, and a jury really could turn around and really go the opposite direction of this criminal jury.
Yeah,
absolutely.
OJ had assets. Zimmerman's flat broke.
By all reports, obviously his defense fund was being paid for by donations, friends, family, etc.
He could write a book.
Correct, or he could potentially win the lawsuit that he has against NBC for defamation.
So, and then the Martins could recover from him for that.
Sure, they get a judgment against him and try to get that money.
Yeah. The other thing is, if the Martins lose their case under Florida law, they'd have to pay fees and court costs. But interestingly enough, under Florida law, no attorney's fees in wrongful death cases. No attorney's fees.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But again, the costs aspect could factor into their calculus as to whether to go forward.
Robert Schalk, Doug Burns, two of the best guys. Thanks very much.
My pleasure, guys. Great.
All right. Harris?
Well, new trouble for the president's health care law. It depends on young people to keep it funded. But this financial plan may be dead on arrival. Our chief business correspondent will explain why. Plus, calling for calm in the wake of the George Zimmerman verdict as protests have erupted nationwide. The Reverend Jesse Jackson will join us live next hour.